Morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Ankush here from Alif Consulting. Welcome back in our partner enablement video series. In our today's video, we're going to talk about Azure File Share and how you can use it in your hybrid environment. Here is our agenda of our today's video. So we're going to talk about what exactly Azure File Share is, what is the advantage, what is the use case, and then we're going to talk about one of the reference architecture, what are the key components, what are the security, availability, and scalability considerations, what are the cost considerations, and then at the end, I'm going to show you how you can create a Azure File Share. Let's start with the introduction. So Azure File is a fully managed file share in the cloud that are accessible via the industry standard SMB and the NFS protocol. Azure File Share can be mounted on any of the device across any of the cloud or on the on-premise. SMB Azure File Share can accessible from Windows, Linux, and Mac OS client system. So they are widely accessible through the SMB. With the NFS, it can be accessible on the Linux and the Mac OS, right? SMB Azure File Share can be cached on Windows Server with Azure File Sync for the faster access near where the data is being used. Now, that is the introduction about the Azure File Share. Now, what is a business case, right? What exactly a business case? How exactly it can be a business solution for a customer. So let's take an example where customer is running, a file share server on Azure or maybe on on-premise. I need to maintain that server, right? He need to do the patching, he need to maintain the security, he need to maintain the space, he need to maintain the user permissions, you need to maintain the NFS permissions as well, right? But that's again, so having and managing all of those things is going to be a challenge for the customer because that is the higher overhead for the customer to manage and do the administrative task. But at the same time, what you can do, you can suggest or you can sell Azure File Share or you can suggest the solution to the customer where the specific Azure File Share can replace their on-premise share server and can be accessible across the network using the Azure Active Directory or the Active Directory domain service. That's true. So it can work as the same way how the file share work. It can be a centralized location for a customer to manage the user folders, to manage the user data, and this doesn't require any kind of patching, doesn't require any kind of operating system maintenance. You just need to maintain the user permissions or you just need to maintain the folder structure. That's it. A part of that, managing the high availability, managing the scalability, managing the underlying hardware, that something is responsible by the micro. So that's where it can replace your file server. It can replace a Microsoft file server on the customer environment, and customer can take the advantage of this. Advantages. That's what I was talking about. So shared access, it can be accessed across all the network on SMB and NFS. Fully managed, no need to worry about anything about patching or managing the hardware. Scripting and tooling, PowerShell or CLI can be used to mount the Azure file share on across the customer profiles. At the same time, if customer is integrating it with the Active Directory domain service, they can use their group policy to run the script and that this file share can be mounted on their system on the desktop, right? So that's what advantage. Resiliency, familiar programmability. So it's do have a IOPS, or it can basically allows you to do run the application as well, and it do have a resiliency in built in, and it can basically replace your on-premise file share as well with the Azure file share. And then again, resiliency in terms of you don't need to worried about any kind of power outage, or you don't need to worried about network issues, because this file share can be accessible over the public network as well. Use case. So any kind of lift and shift migration of the file share. So let's say there is a customer who really want to use Azure file share. He want to migrate their on-premise file server which he is running, and he want to basically want to get rid of the file server, because ultimately he is having a problem of managing the space, managing the uh, like managing the permissions. That's although the permission is also need to manage in the Azure file share, but permission, space, folder structure, operating systems, that's something is no need to be managed in the Azure. In the Azure, you need to manage about the permissions, you need to manage about the folder structure, and that's it. Creating a shared resource for sysadmin or development team. Yep, this allow you to distributed team structure, where you can create your uh, centralized location, and then uh, like centralized location, from there your dev team and sysadmin can access those resources, right? Third, centralized configuration and log management. Yep, this can do your use with your centralized configuration log management system as well. This is how your reference architecture looks like. So you do have a AD connect, or in this reference architecture there is a AD connect, there's a domain controller, and which is getting synced with Azure Active Directory, and then you do have Azure file share, through which Azure Recovery Vault is taking up the backup, and you will see that your client is basically connecting over the public network. At the same time, they can also use the Azure Virtual Network to connect with it. And with this one, customer can take the advantage of their domain controller as well. They can use the Azure AD tenant to sync the user, and those users can be directly assigned the permission on the Azure file share. Here are the key components. Azure Active Directory is the key component here. ADDS server is the key component which is having the on-premise identity. Azure AD Connect server is the one which is basically used to sync the users from on-premise to Azure AD. The virtual network is the one. Azure file share is the one. Recovery Vault is the one. And the client is the one which is basically used by our end user to connect with the Azure file share. Now, if you really want to know Azure AD, Azure Active Directory domain service, you want to know Azure AD Connect server, you want to know the virtual network, or you want to know the recovery vault, please go into the description box. There is a link for the videos, and you can learn a deep dive about these services. Here are the security considerations. So use Active Directory authentication over the SMB for accessing the file share. All data stored in on the Azure file share is the encrypted at rest, but you can use like your you can use a customer managed or your own managed encryption method to do that. Third, all Azure account have the encryption in transit by default, so that's also there. So they do have a data encryption at transit and data encryption at rest, so they are like end-to-end encrypted by default. Client connecting on the Azure file share from anywhere. To limit this, you client can be basically use the firewalls, or the network, and you can enable the private endpoint to enable only the private access. So in this case, what exactly the mean of the fourth consideration, which is connecting over the virtual network? So by default, as I told you, all the file shares are accessible across the public network. Customer clients can use the public endpoint to connect the Azure file share, but at the same time, if you really want to restrict it and only want to allow connecting over the private network, you can enable the private endpoint on it, and with that, it will be only accessible inside the virtual network. Here are the availability considerations. So we do have four types of replications: LRS, ZRS, GRS, and GZRS. So they do have their own advantage. Like with the LRS, you will going to have a three copies in a one data center, or the one physical location or a primary region. With the ZRS, your copy will be shared across the region. With the GRS, your data three copies will be in the in the local region, and three copies will be in the nearby region. With the fourth one, which is GZRS, that's again same as a GRS, but in this case, uh, your secondary copy will be in the readable state. Another thing is, if you are using a premium storage for file share, you will be only going to get uh, ZRS and LRS. But if you are using a standard file share or standard storage for the file share, you will be only going to have a LRS, ZRS, GRS, and GZRS, right? If you really want to understand or you want to learn more about the Azure storage account, there is a video in the description. Azure file share is the cloud service, and all as with the all cloud service, you must have to have internet connectivity to access the file share. A redundant connection solution is highly recommended to avoid the disturbance. Here are the scalability considerations. So Azure file share have a maximum 100 TB of the limitation. There is a no minimum file size or no limitation on the number of files. Maximum size of a file in a file share can be a 1 TB. There is a no limitation of how many number of files you are going to be inside the file share. Maximum IOPS is going to be at the 10,000, and the 10,000 IOPS is on the premium file share. Maximum throughput is going to be a 300 Mbps per second, and this can be scaled up to 6,204 Mbps for a premium file share. The fifth one is IOPS and throughput limit are on the storage account and are shared between the file shares in the same account. So let's take an example. There is a storage account which have a limitation of 10,000 IOPS, and you are having a 5 share created. That IOPS will be shared across all of this file share accordingly or evenly. Cost consideration. So in Azure, basically you do have two types of storage accounts, standard and premium, and all of them have their own cost structure. So you need to select your file share according to your how many IOPS or what is the maximum throughput you're looking for, and accordingly your pricing will be calculated. And then there is the data transfer cost is also there for all the egress. So whatever data coming inside to the storage account, there is a no charges on that, but whatever the data going outside from the storage account, there will be a charges, and Microsoft will be going to charge for that. Well, that's it. Let's move to the demo. So in the demo, I will be going to show you how you can create a Azure storage account, and how you can create a file share within it, and how it can be accessible from a system. Well, I am on my Azure subscription, and to create the storage, first of all, search for a storage account from top. So search for the storage account. You will see this is the storage account you need to search. And you will see I do have a bunch of storage accounts is already created. So let's go to my first storage account. And this is the standard storage account which is there. And we'll be going to use the storage account to create the Azure file share. Right. So you will be going to have a file share option under the data storage. And it's the maximum capacity is 5 TB, but you can scale it to the 100 TB. Okay, this is a here. You just need to click on this option and you can scale it to the 100 TB. I really don't want to go in want to set up for the 100 TB, since this is a demo environment, and from here you can create your file share. And you need to define the name. All right. So yeah, it's the issue. We just need to define the name in the lower lower character. You can specify what kind of tier it's going to be. It's going to be hot, cold, and premium. So this is the standard storage. So we only have a transactional optional, and then click on create. So it's going to be take a few seconds, and this is done. You just need to click on it, and on the top you will be going to have options to connect, and click on connect. And from here you can basically connect it with your Linux, your Windows, and your Mac OS. You just need to select, copy this one, and you can simply hit on your on the terminal on the VM according to your operating system, and you can connect with this file share, and you can upload or download the data. Well, that's it in the demo. I hope you like this video. If you like, please click on like and subscribe for more upcoming videos. Thank you.